Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Meg and I'm coming back at you with another final video essay. This time it's for Advanced Educational Technology. Maybe if you saw the previous video, you saw me use technology as materials by making Instagram Reels, but I bet you never guessed that now I am a module developer. That's all thanks to our focus on the ADDIE framework in this course. What's the ADDIE framework, you say? The ADDIE model is a 5-step approach to building effective learning solutions. This includes thinking about delivery method and all the other things that will come with developing the resource for that specific audience in mind. Once you've analyzed the characteristics and who it will be for, then you have to design the learning solution, including the learning objectives. What are the goals? What strategies will be used to implement the learning solution? What strategies will be implemented to show the link between lesson objectives and the content? Third is to develop the resource. That isn't just the creation of it, but it's also review from other experts and from other people to give you input while you're in the development phase. Once you've developed it and people have reviewed it, then you're ready to implement. You send that learning solution out to your audience and to where it was supposed to go. Like any good framework, you also have to end with evaluation. In this case, that means looking at it after implementation. How did it do with the audience? How did the revisions from experts contribute to the implementation? And what could you change in the future? Or even change right now as you continue to develop it? It doesn't just stop after evaluation. You can keep going. Well, and by that, not forever, but this is about improving the learning solution, so evaluation can be multiple steps. I followed this ADDIE framework while I was building my own module. For me, my audience already came from a pre-selected group when I was in the school experience program. They were the middle schoolers that I was teaching, and I was specifically looking at the time that I spent in the English club with those students. In my experience, those students that I worked with during the English club struggled the most with recalling vocabulary, especially word association, knowing what words are related to each other. For example, if you have sports, what words are related to that? Might be volleyball, net, basketball, hoop, etc. That's word association. But these students were struggling to recall all of that vocabulary together in context. Therefore, the purpose of the module was to address that learning objective, improve their word association, which meant that my module needed to be focused on vocabulary and vocabulary in context. My solution was to create a Scratch module called Supermarket Spree. The goal of this module was then to learn about vocabulary related to supermarkets and grocery shopping, and especially food vocab, all together in that context. I wanted to simulate a real-life experience in some sort, so my goal was to have them shop their way through the aisles by having a list for the items and looking for the specific items out of a large group of vocabulary. Asking them to simulate a real-life shopping trip with lists of vocabulary words meant that they could word associate those food groups based on different types, like fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and grains, and others. And by doing that, then they can learn about spatial relationships as well as word association within a location from the real world, like a supermarket. You can see this nifty little mock-up that I made earlier. It's a cute little drawing that showed what my plan was for the module. Students would be able to click and drag specific items in the module. These items would be food-related vocabulary, like fruits, vegetables, dairy, and grains. By clicking on each of these, students would be able to hear an audio pronunciation of the word, see the visual representation of it, and see it written out on the list. This gave it that multimodality aspect of seeing the information and encountering the information in lots of different modes. Hopefully, the mechanics of the module that ask them to navigate a simulated space, they would be able to relate that experience of the game to real life later on. My hope was with something like vocabulary related to food, it would be applicable to their real life and situations that they would actually encounter. The reviewers of my module were my friends from the class as well, who were playing the role of experts to give me feedback on the module. They played the roles of media expert, a potential user, and a teacher using the module in order to teach. The reviewers, who were playing the roles of potential user and teacher, said that it would be highly useful for navigating the vocabulary on their own, and as well as for using it as a teaching resource in pronunciation. The teacher reviewer said that it would be wonderful for the teacher to be able to remix this module and turn it into one that had specific vocabulary for their own students. Only the individual who played the media expert had any revisions or critiques for my module. They were, number one, that it could add a scorekeeping system so that the students would know where they were at with the score. They also said it would be beneficial if the items on the list could be crossed out so that the student knows when it's completed. Otherwise, they liked the design and said that it was very creative with the listening audio. The media expert brought up two very good points that could be revised in my module. Number one was the scorekeeping system, that it could include a way for students to see their score and understand how they did overall. Second was the inclusion of a way to mark things off the list so that students knew that they already had it in their shopping cart. I agree with the media expert that these are two great points and they could definitely improve the module. I did look into this while creating my module, and in fact, it's still there in the code for people to see. The problem is that for whatever reason inside of the code, it's not appearing to the viewer. So it's definitely a good point because it was already thought of during the creation process. With more time and more ability to develop this module, and with better understanding of how Scratch works, this is definitely achievable. It would just take some different workarounds, and a different element of rather than a shopping list, maybe turning it into a list item that they can click off. But for now, it's a good point to bring up. However, for the current learning process, what I had was going to be able to be workable with students, and so I sent it out the way it was, hoping to revise it later. So we continued forward to implementation. As I stated earlier, my audience was comprised of students who were of a middle school level from my SEP program and part of the English club that I supervised during my time there. This did not change during the process of module development or reviewing. It still stayed the same with the goal. But how did I implement it? Because I already knew those students and I had met them during the program, I was able to ask their teacher to collaborate with them on this project. And so I just sent them a really quick message asking them if they would please check out my module and review it, followed along with an evaluation survey for them to fill out. While I wasn't able to be present while the students played the Scratch module, I did receive those surveys and I did confirm with them that they had filled it out and played the game. The very first question in the survey confirms that I had their consent to collect this data and information from the survey. For this module, I asked my participants to use the Learning Object Evaluation Survey. The reason that they developed it was so that there could be a reliable evaluation tool when it came to learning objects that were being created. In terms of reliability, Kay and Knack tested it on over 1,100 students. Analysis confirmed 3 constructs of learning, quality, and engagement. And correlations were found between those constructs and the related measures which were the intent to assess. I had 3 students who answered the LOES survey, and here is what they had to say. Primarily, a lot of 4s and 5s from the students. They said that the learning object helped them learn, that the feedback was useful, and that the graphics and the animations were part of that learning process. Only 1 student said that they didn't really consider the object as helping them learn a new concept, but overall they did agree that it helped them learn in general. As for what could be improved, a lot of them asked for more variety of the items. They wanted to learn more vocabulary, which is a good sign. And they wanted more stages or different difficulties, different topics. So it showed that they were at least interested in what the module was trying to tell them. Some, however, suggested that information about each vocabulary term could be provided, rather than just the audio clip, so that they could learn more about the context of each word themselves. One student even suggested scorekeeping, just like the media expert did. So that shows that this is definitely a revision that is important to the module. And again, students said that they wanted more material than just vocabulary. So while the goal is word association, it's clear that they were still looking to learn more from the module. They indicated that the help features were useful, that the instructions were easy to follow, and that it was easy to use. Maybe interestingly again, one student said that they felt it was only slightly organized at a 2, even though the others said 5. So perhaps there's some room to grow in terms of organization. As for enhancing quality, a lot of the students expressed concerns about the quality of the images. This is something that I noticed for myself looking at the Scratch module. It is somewhat a limitation of Scratch and using real-life images that they will come out pixelated because that is just the way that Scratch is set up. But I can see why students can see that as a quality issue, and so maybe in the future it would be best to look into ways to improve that quality. One concern that a student had was that a lot of the items felt camouflaged to them, and they weren't able to find them. This may have also stemmed from the fact that the images themselves were blurry or hard to see, and as the student pointed out, the mobile device made it very difficult to zoom in on the module. This is one limitation that existed from embedding the module into a website. It did not allow for them to be able to zoom in the module or see it any bigger, so that was a limitation that can be addressed from this student's comment. Despite these issues that students saw in quality, overall, they had positive associations with the module. They liked them, they said that it taught them essential vocabulary, that it was fun, educative, and that it was very creative and enjoyable. They said that maybe just the quality was not to their liking, and again, the issue with things hiding. And those were the two main issues that the students had. 2 out of 3 said that it was very difficult to find, and 1 said that the overall quality could be improved. Students had lots of ideas about what could be added, including more levels, more difficulties, a spelling bee at the checkout, and even said that they wanted it to have different types of vocabulary or new types of learning that weren't just vocabulary. So we can see that the module did engage with the audience and that they did like it, but just perhaps there were issues with quality that could be changed based on the way that it interacted with Scratch and their expectations of what they want from the module. One thing that could be learned from creating this module and seeing the data is that you should never underestimate just how much students may be willing to learn. I created what I thought was just a word association vocabulary game, but as I can see from my 3 participants' responses, they would love to see more levels or more information or different ways to play, such as spelling games or competitive scorekeeping. So it shows me that you should always keep this audience in mind when creating these things, because ultimately they might have different expectations than you think. With what students said about the module, as well as expert reviews, I now have a clearer picture of what could be done in the future for creating modules using Scratch. There are ways to improve the quality and perhaps the criteria of the game. Overall, from what I learned from the reviewers and the participants and the implementation process, there are definitely ways that the Scratch module could improve in quality, could grow in scale, and be more interactive in terms of scorekeeping and telling them right or wrong answers. Those are great things to look at in the future, and so I'm very grateful for them to have provided me with the survey data and as well as information from the reviewers.
To wrap up this video, I'll discuss one way that the module, Supermarket Spree, can be used in a lesson plan. Supermarket Spree, in my opinion, is best suited as a review or practice of a material and not as a standalone lesson. So, for instance, it would fit into an existing video about learning food vocabulary. Here is a look at that lesson plan. Going on a virtual field trip with Bob the Canadian. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to listen to Bob's virtual field trip and locate items in the supermarket based on different aisles, and implement that understanding of real-world spaces to complete a virtual shopping list of 4 different aisles using Supermarket Spree. Pre-activity. Main question. Where do you buy your food? Start a discussion on how students buy food in their own country. Do they shop in a market or a store? What do they usually buy? What does it look like? Use students' own understanding of their own environment as a foundation for exploring a new topic in English, the supermarket, sometimes called a grocery store. Activity. Watch Let's Learn English at the Grocery Store, a video from Bob the Canadian's YouTube channel. Watch it together as a class. Pause each section after the video plays. Ask students about the different items Bob described. And then ask students what foods they can see in the background. Have a discussion about how Bob's local supermarket compares to their own. What's the same and what's different? Post-activity. Instruct students to grab their phones or other available devices. Then send the link to a Scratch module named Supermarket Spree. Ask students to screenshot the shopping list that they get. Then they have to write that shopping list down in their notebook and add one item in each aisle from their home country that is not included in the original module. Hopefully, by incorporating a virtual field trip with Bob the Canadian, as well as more information on how the food items are used in vocabulary, these improvements in the lesson plan will help the Scratch module be more effective. These are some of the concerns that the participants brought up during the survey. By turning the Scratch module into a practice session during a regular lesson, it will provide a more well-rounded idea of food vocabulary in the context of a supermarket. In terms of research, I believe my module could help assess the efficacy of implementing digital tools with a focus on multimodality, and whether or not multiple representations of information like text, images, and audio improve the students' vocabulary skills. It might prompt a question like, does multimodal interactivity impact students' vocabulary retention? The impact of the module can result from its colorful, comfy appeal. Unlike other supermarket simulators on Scratch, it uses real-world representations of vocabulary and involves multiple formats of audio. This way, it will have a larger impact than modules like it. The major risk of using a module like this to conduct research is perhaps whether it would be confounded by the novelty of the item. If students like the module's aesthetic, they may be more likely to say their learning process improved, leading to a danger of skewed results in a research. However, this could be addressed by the researcher through careful planning and using a framework that outlines what improvement truly is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new today and that this Scratch module inspires you to create something of your own. Stay tuned, check out the channel, and goodbye!